and the posts hast thou set up thy remembrance, for thou hast discovered thyself to another than me, and art gone up, thou hast enlarged thy bed, made thee a covenant with them. Okay, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Alright, there's no end here. Okay, so we're continuing in Hosea chapter 4, verse 15. I know that I'm just, in spite of everything, I'm still not quite ready. It's just the way it is, I guess. Alright, well, you know. Okay. So, though thou, Israel, play the harlot, let not Judah offend, and come ye not to Gilgal, neither go up to Bethaven, nor swear, the Lord liveth. And then he has a conclusion about that. We left off at verse 15, and we read it already. And the two things I felt I needed to still cover were Gilgal, Bethaven. I mentioned Bethaven is it's a name, it's like a, that doesn't work. I mean, it's like saying, like, it's not Chicago, it's Chicago stop. So, Bethel means house of God. Bethaven means house of vanity. There was no place called Bethaven officially. It was a prophetic name given to Bethel because it wasn't the house of God anymore. It was not appropriate to call it the house of God. And it wasn't that there was a church there or anything like that. It was a place where Jacob said, "This is God's house." But and that's in Genesis. You can read about that. Gilgal, but the more significant thing is not Jacob's calling it that place. Gilgal and Bethaven or Bethel. Well, Gilgal is important in the history of Joshua. Joshua goes up to Gilgal all the time. It's in the book of Joshua. If you search the word Gilgal in your Bible, you'll find it occurs quite a bit in Joshua. It was an important place where it was said that God took away the reproach of Egypt from Israel. But I don't think that's really the reference here. In the time of Samuel, Gilgal was was part of his circuit. Before they had a king, they had the judges, and the judges were kind of like, well, what were the judges? Samuel wasn't like a lot of the judges. He was a judge, but he wasn't exactly a priest, was he? He was kind of like a priest. I don't know. I didn't check on his lineage because the priesthood was supposed to be of Levi. Whatever. But he wasn't going around doing a priest's duty. He was going around doing a judge's duty. He would go around and judge Israel, and he would go on a circuit. So then, in a certain season, he'd be at Gilgal. A certain season, he'd be at Bethaven or Bethel. And he was not, and the judge was kind of like the arbiter of God's will, and he judged the people. Not the way we would think of a conventional judge, but like as a leader. For Israel slideth back as a backsliding heifer. Now the Lord will feed them as a lamb in a large place. It's one of those things that's like, agricultural references to things I don't know about. Israel's as a backsliding heifer. And I assume, here's the thing. I live in Illinois. When I think about animals plowing, I see a lot of very flat ground. You know what I mean? Uh, but if I thought of someone on a like hilly, muddy terrain, I'm gonna say, based on Israel's behavior, that a backsliding heifer, like I guess I imagine my mind a cow or like on a muddy slope, sliding backwards, and just sort of giving it up. Like they're not gonna try to get back up the hill. They're just gonna kind of, well, I guess I slid down and go their way. You know what I mean? Because animals take the path of least resistance, as far as I can tell. And this makes sense to me. Backsliding heifer, it's not like it doesn't have a stubborn will to say, like, I need to get up to the top of that mountain. They slide back and they say, well, I'm not going that way. Right? Now, an animal might be clever and try to go around, but I think the idea is of something trying to ascend. Because when else do you slide backwards? Sliding backwards is something that doesn't happen very often in life. But every time I slid backwards, literally, because if a animal is sliding backwards, it's not a moral backslide. It is a literal backslide. So I have slid backwards, both morally and literally, but certainly, literally, what informs me is the feeling I was always going uphill and like sliding back. All 3 times or whatever. I don't know how many times it's happened. But I can feel the sensation. So I think because Israel slides back and does not attempt to return. You know what I mean? I think that's what it's saying. Israel just slides because why? As a heifer. You know what I mean? I'm guessing there's not a lot of try hard in a heifer. And a heifer, I believe, refers to I'm going to look it up. Just because I always assumed a heifer. Well, I know a heifer. That's a cow, right? I'm not going to bring up... I'm looking at Bible Hub real quick. Heifer. A heifer, a cow, parah. Okay, that's what Strong says it is, and I'm willing to agree. Huh. Sliding back, though, there we go. Slideth back, it says stubborn or rebellious, and I'm going to look that up a little deeper. You can see half of it up there. It's a funny thing the way these windows work. Let's see. I'll just... As long as I'm bringing up the definition. Stubborn or rebellious. Okay. So much for all that talking. So I just feel like sometimes it's like... Yeah. Rebels. So let's see, what do they say in other translations? Is stubborn like a stubborn heifer. Okay. Whatever. But it's like, stubborn as a mule. It doesn't like to move when bidden. So there we go. I looked up Gilgal and I didn't have time to do anything else. Sorry. Oh, that's the way it is. It's either no Bible study or this Bible study. There's not much choice, I wish I had more time to do more, but, it's better to do something rather than nothing sometimes. Sometimes you can break things by doing too much. Oh, yes, the wisdom. All right. Now the Lord will feed them as a lamb in a large place. That sounds good. But I think it's, I don't know. That to me sound. The thing is, contextually, it's got to be sinister. Contextually, that has to be bad, right? So what's it? It probably means something like I'm gonna fatten them up for the slaughter. That's what I take from it. I'm gonna feed them like a lamb in a large place. A broader, roomy place. Yeah, there's, Now what feed says break here in Hebrew. Man, the King James is letting me down. So when I look on Bible, it says that means break, dude. You don't break lamb? As far as I know, you don't break lambs though. Like you would a horse. You break a horse, you break its will. Yeah, it means to pasture, tend, graze, according to this, though. Look at this. This is annoying. You can't see the part. I think Bible Hub must be letting me down. Well, I thought it was there, but anyways. That's frustrating. Not terribly, but to pasture, tend, graze. Okay, that's what it means, according to this. No, do not translate page. Get out of my face. All right. So, with another nice little... That was not helpful. Running me in circles today. So, I'm going to say, like I said, to me that sounds like Israel... He doesn't have anything good to say about Israel. Though Israel play the harlot, let not Judah offend. Okay. Whether that's saying, hey, let Judah be... Judah is not as offensive, is what I would say. Because based on... If you look at the history of the kings of Israel and Judah, there was stuff going on in Judah also. Not as extensively. At this point. And come ye not to Gilgal, neither go up to Bethaven, nor swear the Lord liveth. I see. These are places of worship. They're not the official like Jerusalem, but Samuel would go up at a certain season. And later on in chapter 9, he'll say like the sacrifices of Gilgal, he doesn't like it. So they're places of sacrifice. See, here's the thing about this verse that gets me. Yet let not Judah offend is said in the same context, don't swear the Lord lives. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit, it's a little bit questionable whether he's serious. Because it says, don't go up to the religious place. Don't go up to that religious place. And don't swear the Lord lives. Let not Judah offend. I'm just saying there's some sort of Israel play the harlot. Here let not Judah offend. But come not to Gilgal. Don't go up to Bethaven. Nor swear the Lord lives. I don't know. I mean, Jesus said swear not at all, but that's not really an Old Testament idea. When he says that, it's like, hey, don't call on the name of the Lord. Don't seek the Lord at these places. Maybe it's suggesting ways Judah could avoid offending the Lord. You can avoid offending the Lord by following the law and not going up to Gilgal. And there was there's like this thing in the Kings that says, he was a good king. He followed the Lord all his days. Yet the high places were not taken away. Oh, he was a good king. He removed the house of the Sodomites that was in the temple. Good job. That's where Israel was. Judah even. He removed the house of the Sodomites from the temple. But the high places were not taken away. There were always these high places. Because people tended to do these things, and the kings were like loth to do anything about it, because it's like popular. And a lot of places that were traditional, like Samuel used to come here. Let's build an altar. And don't swear the Lord lives. Because I guess it's, well, because it's annoying to God when you swear the Lord lives and you're not loyal to him. I swear to God, but you don't honor God in your heart. You're not mindful of God. When someone is not mindful of God, them saying, I swear to God, doesn't mean anything. Don't invoke God's name when you care not for God. Israel slideth back as backsliding. She plays the harlot. She slides back as a. She's stubborn like a stubborn cow. And what does that mean? Well, a cow is big and difficult to move. A stubborn cow that doesn't want to move. It's like, come on, come on! Trying to drag it along by its harness. If they won't go, it's not easy to make them go. Like, you ever have not a lot of people have experience with cows. I have zero. I've never touched a cow. I can say that with authority. I've never touched a cow. I've never laid a finger on one. I've seen them. I've even been close. I might have pet a cow once, actually, now I think about it. I've pet horses. I don't know if I've pet cows. I would pet a cow, though. I would. They look sweet. But I do have experience with dogs, right? I've had a lot of dogs over my lifetime, or 4 or 5, Yeah. It's maybe 6. I didn't count them. But, when that dog doesn't want to go and it kind of gets its legs all splayed out and you're like, come on. They're like, shh, sliding across the kitchen. You can force a dog to move because they're little, but you can't force them to move their legs if they don't want to. And a cow is like, if it doesn't want to move, it just won't. And you aren't going to move it. It's way too heavy. And Israel's like that. They're stubborn and you can't move them. Not that God can't move anyone he wants, but he sends the prophets to speak words that they would move on their own. It goes to this concept I've talked about many times, is that God could make the world in which God would be ever present and we would know he was present. But we would be somewhat morally deficient because we would have not the ability to be moral without God hovering over us constantly. It's like with my kids, I try to make sure I don't involve myself in everything they're doing. Let them, let them do their own thing. And especially when it comes to things that they need to be competent at, sometimes you need to let someone just do stuff and explore and be not competent in it, be incompetent, It's like the parent, I remember there were kids even in high school whose parents were still writing their reports for them. I remember when I heard about that, I remember it was like so alien. I remember someone telling me, oh yeah, her mom writes all her stuff for her. It's like, I remember it was so alien to me. I was like, what? I heard it. I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I never thought, like, I was like, well, that's weird, but I don't know. My parents never wrote anything for me, as you shouldn't. It's your kid's schoolwork. You're not supposed to write it for them. That's like, you go, I want them to get a good grade. It's like, I want them to have, and they'll never get good grades if you keep writing the reports for them. Your paper got a good grade, but your kid is getting credit for something they didn't do. And that's not education. I once had well, whatever. I was gonna say I had to turn down a job based on that because I don't like, it's unethical. But more than that, it hurts your kids because they need to, uh, they need to struggle with things to grow. You know, how did I get to that? What did that have to do with anything I was reading? I don't know. It made sense at the time. I'm sure it made sense to you too. All right, Israel slide by the backsliding here. Now the Lord will feed them as a lamb in a large place. Don't know. It could mean like, okay. It's very simple. Okay, sometimes I'm so stupid. It's very whatever. It's not stupidity, because maybe you didn't understand either. Maybe you were sitting there yelling at your monitor. Come on, dude. This is what it is. Whatever the case is, here's what it is. She's stubborn like a heifer, won't move. Okay, I'm gonna let her go. I'm gonna let her go into instead of trying to get her to go down sort of the narrow way. I'm just gonna cut her loose. Cut her loose into the pasture. You know, I've seen cows and animals out. I live in the country, but I'm not a farmer by any means. Never have been. Never will be. I'm a gardener, though. I like gardening. And I like animals, and I wouldn't mind keeping some. But I've observed something, and you even see big animals frolic when they go out to pasture. Like when they first get let loose into a big open place, they love it. They love it, and they kind of skip out there. They trot out. They're so glad to be free. And so it's like the opposite. Like they may not go where you want them to go, but there's a place they always want to go, which is free. And they love to roam free. And so that's what he's saying. He's saying like a lamb. Notice it's young, because I've seen when there's pasture, man, the calves, the young animals really love it. They're like children playing. They love the wide open thing. They kick their feet up and they run. They get excited. They like the open spaces. So I'm going to cut them loose like a lamb. Just do whatever you want. And that kind of makes sense. The next sentence, Ephraim is joined to idols, let him alone. Ephraim is the leading tribe of Israel. I don't know if we mentioned that in this study, but sometimes prophetically they refer to Israel as Ephraim, just as they refer to Judah, the kingdom of Judah in the north. It's called Judah, but it is actually Judah and Benjamin and the whole nation. And also, like I've always said, and if you scour the Old Testament, you'll find references that indicate that there are some in Israel that remain loyal to the king of Judah, even from the time of the division. So it's not like it's the kingdom of Judah. It is not the tribe of Judah only in the southern kingdom. So that's why, but they call all the people in that kingdom Jews, even though they are not all descended from Judah. And so the northern kingdom of Israel is sometimes called Ephraim, because Ephraim was the leading tribe, the biggest. All right. The same concept, though. He's joined the idols, let him alone. If that's what he wants to do, then let him do it. I'm tired of trying to move this stubborn old cow. I'm tired of expending all my effort to get him to move. And it went back to, I remember now. I'm just remembered why I was talking about kids and letting them do their thing. God could stand over us, causing us to, see him and, better, it's like when I see a police officer I check my speed. And if I'm going too fast, I slow down, you know? And the same thing with God. It's like, if you know God's will and he was hovering over you, you do better. And you observe this all the time with people. I've even had it happen to me, like, where nephews would be like, they know I teach the Bible and I'm right? I've been doing that for years. And I have a certain reputation in my family, right? And so they'd swear, not swear, they'd use profanity, actually. They use profanity, and then they'd apologize. Like my ears are too delicate for the hearing of such things. And I get it though, because it's like when you see someone as an authority you respect, you don't just swear in front of them. Like you don't go to court and say, "Hey, judge, I'm glad you're hearing my effing case," because I'm really effing tired of this a-hole over here interfering with all my business. You don't do that. You will quickly fight. You will be like, "Sir, you will not use this language." Because the court is a sacred space. I mean, not religiously so, but in a sense, it has this sort of decorum, and it's separate. You don't talk with gutter talk in the court. There's a certain amount of dignity and respect, and even though in our profane society, that goes to this day. You don't talk like that in court. And you will quickly find yourself, if you insist on it, you'll probably find yourself in contempt of court and maybe sitting in jail overnight. Or maybe, honestly, you probably find yourself with a fine and go home. And, that's more likely. They'll fine you. Because you know why? It costs money to keep you in jail. But a fine goes into the, to the local county treasury. They like fines. They're not going to jail you for being an idiot. They'll just take your money and send you home. Of course, if you can get yourself thrown in jail anyway. Yeah. Their drink is sour, but the Lord does all that because it's good for our growth. All right, just as for my kids, I don't, I don't want people to change their behavior just because I'm around. I certainly don't want that. I don't want them to. I don't mind profanity. I find to be the least offensive thing. It's not as bad as like curse. People don't like the spirit of which the cursing. People definitely take the Lord's name in vain, and swear on the name's Lord in vain, and they definitely. And there is some cursing where you directly curse. A lot of times people think, "Oh, this is effing great. Don't curse." That's not a curse. That's profanity. It's because the language is far from sacred. Basically, is what profane means, and so on. But I see the value in being able to, without God making me feel like there's this instant retribution for my sins, or instant like, hey, you're sinning, instant like hovering and watching over me, making sure I never make a mistake. I'm not actually strong in righteousness. You know what I mean? I'm just being supervised. And since we are becoming the sons of God, it is fitting for us to know how to keep our vessels in sanctification without having to be babysat. If you're going to share in the divine nature, if you're going to obtain all the gifts which are given us in Christ, part of that is the gift of being able to learn to control yourself. Without self-control, immortality is not available. It's not. It's something we should be practicing, because it's something God is going to expect of us in the world to come. And yes, we will not be as subject to temptation, But if there was no value in this, the Lord would not put us through it. I think there's great value in the life we live, and it is very important how we live it. Some people, I think Christianity has been corrupted in many ways, and the worst way is that people have been deceived to think that their behavior does not matter to God, when it definitely matters. It's just because they're forgiven, they think they're forgiven, therefore they can do whatever. And they don't think that like literally, but that is how they live, as though they thought they can do whatever. So their drink is sour, they have committed whoredom continually. Her rulers with shame do love give ye. The wind hath bound her up in her wings, and they shall be ashamed because of their sacrifices. That's interesting. What could that mean? So their drink is sour. They have committed whoredom continually. Now, drink here may refer, he is joined to idols, let him alone. Their drink is sour. They've committed whoredom continually. They love saying, give. It's shameful, and they love it. They love give ye. I mean that I could go on and on, couldn't I, about that one? But let's do the first part. Their drink is sour. I'm gonna better look that up. Maybe they'll send me in a circle here, and we can have lots of fun. But that's not. Here we go. So let's see. Let's consult Bible Hub. Sour, it says to turn sour. Right. No, it means to turn aside. Okay, well, we use that, and some people still use it, like, that milk has turned. It's turned a corner. It's gone from one state, which was good, to turned, and now it's sour. That milk has turned. We still use that. Some people do. I've certainly heard it. It's interesting that the ancient language, the same basic idea, still, turned sour. It's implied in the language. Committed whoredom. Whoredom continually. This is an interesting thing. If you look up these words, what actually is, they say the same word twice. Zara, which is to commit fornication, to be a harlot. And the next word is the same word. They double it. Like they fornicate, And it means to, it's just fornication on top of fornication. With shame. Well, shame is dishonor, which makes a lot more sense. Because shame implies like, they're ashamed. They're ashamed of this. No. It does not mean they feel shame. It means they shamefully do love, give ye. Let's see if there's anything else I need over here. Wing is just as I've always known. Extremity, edge, adversary. What? The wind. I don't know, man. The wind hath bound her up in her wings sounds like a weird thing. That does not, that like maybe there's a colloquial understanding, or maybe there's just a different translation. Okay, so let's look at this in another context. Let's see another translation. Let's see what the Devil's translation says. I don't really mean that, but I like to say that because a whirlwind will sweep them away. I guess that makes sense. My point in looking at that is to see, do they take a vastly different, that's an interpretation, because that's definitely not what the word says. The wind is caught up in her wings, you know. I mean, she's caught the wind with her wings, you know. And a whirlwind will sweep. Oh, maybe that's kind of what it means. That's why people don't like the NIV, because it interprets it for you. But I sometimes find that helpful. It was like, okay, that's how they take it. That's kind of how I was thinking it was. So I'm not going to say, okay, you know, unless you have you think that it's better some other way. So it's useful sometimes. And like I said, I don't really think the NIV is the devil's translation, but I do think it's not a good translation for a teacher to rely on, because you do not know that what you are reading is exactly what the word says. Yeah, I mean, it's not it is a little more than a translation. As they say, it's a thought for thought translation. So they're not just translate. It's not a word for word translation. They're translating the words into thoughts in Hebrew, and then they're translating the thoughts into English. Yeah, and there's a double translation going on there. That's part of the problem with the NIV. Okay, and that's the honest problem. It's like some people get, oh, they changed Lucifer to Morning Star. Yeah, well, that's what it says. That's actually a more in that case, honestly, the NIV in Isaiah 14 is more accurate to the Hebrew than the King James. It's more literal. It's a more accurate translation in that one case there. And in several others, I have no doubt. It's just that, like I said, you'll see a lot of venom spit at the NIV on the internet, which is it's just fine, whatever. I'm not a big battler in that. I love the King James. It's just got a lot of problems, whatever. It's like, but it's like a member, it's like a member of my family. It doesn't matter how many problems it has. It's my brother, it's my sister, it's my mother. So I deal with it. For Israel, slideth back. We did that. So their drink has turned. Now, what will their drink? Because we're talking about the context of idolatry, this is almost certainly referring to some sort of drink offering. Or oblation, as the word that was the word I learned in my 20s. Oblation, because I look it up, it would say an oblation. I was like, okay, well, that's something I've never heard of. Which is, an oblation is a drink offered to a god in like a salute or a toast, so to speak. Like, we drink in there, because even before communion, they were offering drinks to gods. I drink this in honor of, we always are doing drinks in honor of things. So ancient tradition, just like eating in honoring of things. It's something humans do together to honor things. We will have this meal in celebration of X. That is just what we do. It's a very common, probably universal human thing to do. It's a very, very ancient tradition that goes back in humanity. But there's a lot of times where it talks about, pouring out drink offerings to the Lord, and in the prophets, and it's sort of like saying, and he often says, like, I don't want to, I will not receive this because of the sins that are going on in this nation. I don't want to receive your drink. As something, even though sometimes they pour it out to God. Literally, they'll take the drink and they'll pour it out as a sacrifice. Like, that's a good cup of wine, and they pour it out. Now, when they would pour it out, it's a symbolic offering it to God, meaning I'm not going to drink it. Nobody's going to drink this. This is to God. We're just like burning a sacrifice. It's being offered up. Nobody gets the benefit from it. Now, the priests often ate the sacrifices, which is fine because they served God. And same with drinks. Drinks often, I don't know if they were all poured out, but whatever you're offering to God, you're losing it. Yeah, I mean, and that's why sacrifices had to be spotless, without blemish. Because it's like, if you're going to make a sacrifice, it has to be something valuable. It can't be like, well, this one's a runt and it has 3 legs and it's whatever, and it's deformed. Let's offer this to God. This will be a sacrifice. You're gonna cull that thing anyways. Cull, which means to kill an animal to remove it from the herd. You were going to cull that thing anyways, and you gave it to God. Whoop-de-doo, that's not a sacrifice. And what he's saying, the drink they're offering me is sour. I mean, it's not something they would have drank. It's a drink that's gone bad. It's turned. So they're offering me sour drink. And that's obviously a metaphor for, like when Jesus said, will you drink the cup? Can you drink the cup that I must drink of? Can you endure? And when people offer God a cup of a drink offering, it's more than just, it's like saying, accept me. You know what I mean? Drink me in. It's like saying, when I bring myself to the attention of God, I could say, like, Lord, examine me. Is there any iniquity in me? Is there any unrighteousness in me? Is there any impurity in me? Look at me. And I can open myself up to God and pour myself out, so to speak. You know what I mean? And a drink offering can symbolize that. It can symbolize, there's a lot of ways you can look at it, but I'm just trying to open your mind up to the thought of understanding drink in a metaphorical sense as like you're offering something to God that belongs to you. And ultimately, our sacrifices, whatever they happen, like in the New Testament says, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice to Christ. This is your reasonable service. That we offer ourselves. Jesus said this cup is the blood of the new covenant. And my blood is like a cup to God. Like my life, it belongs to God. And it's like when my blood is poured out, will he drink it or cast it aside as sour? In a metaphorical sense. When my life is poured out, what is it worth? When God sees my life just spilled out, like bloodshed, when your blood, let's say you give your life and you die, what does that blood represent? Is it the death of a righteous man? The death of a fool? The death of a criminal? The death of a fornicator? The death. What does God see? Does he see something poured out that is sour and disgusting? And the like blood rightly spilled. You know what I mean? What should you do with sour drink? If your milk goes bad, what do you do with it? Well, you pour it out. You throw it out. You get rid of it. You don't pour it out you don't offer it to a guest. You sure don't offer it to God. In my life, when I offer it to God, it can't be this sour yuck. It's got to be. I want it to be something that's a sweet savor to God. The New Testament uses all this same language. The idea of sweet savor goes back to the idea of like the sacrifices being acceptable to God, and Paul uses it in terms of like the giving that people would do. Because giving is good. I talk about giving. I love talking about giving, and I love talking about money. And that's a joke I've taken on. I don't always say that, but that's a new joke I've taken on in my teachings, is how much I love talking about money. Because I do. Because it's a good thing to talk about. It's an important subject. And then someone who wouldn't talk about... I just say that because I had a teacher when I was young, Arnold Murray, who always said he hated talking about money, but he always talked about that. It's like, I don't know, I think you kind of like talking about money. You get riled up. Like, it's like talking about false prophets. I like talking about I like talking about all kinds of subjects in the Bible. I like talking about fornication and harlotry. I don't like the concepts, but I mean, I'm saying I'm going to talk about it. Like before, when my alarm clock goes off in the morning, I don't want to get up. I mean, I'm just tired, especially because it's like I don't get the right amount of sleep sometimes during the week. This commitment to 7 in the morning, I did it a year ago, and it hasn't worked out totally good for me. But I do get excited every day to open up God's Word. I do. And there's nothing in it that I'm not... They never like dread, like, oh boy, what am I going to do about this? Like, I enjoy the challenge of tackling things that I don't understand. Just on the fly, not having any idea what I'm going to say. That's fun. I found that highly stimulating. But it's like, I get up, I feel tired, man. Feel tired, but it's like that. But it's inspirational enough to me to make me want to get up. I do it. Well, I do it. I get up because of the commitment, not because I like it. I get up because of the commitment. But once I'm up, I do like it, and that helps me recommit. And what was the point of that? Oh, sometimes I get far afield. Oh, money. Yeah, money. Let's go on to the give you, right? You get the cup thing? I think I get it, I think I could have probably waxed more eloquent on that and kept going, but that's fine. Let your drink be sweet to the Lord. When he drinks up your life, like a drink, when he takes it, what is it? What is he going to drink? What is he going to taste? Is he going to taste? Oh, look at. Tastes like whoredom continually. Now, I one more thing on that. I mean, what? Tell me. You've read Revelation, I hope. You've studied Revelation with me, I hope. I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet-colored beast, having names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And what was in her hand? A golden cup full of abominations and filthiness of her fornications. And like, so don't anybody tell me I don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about this drink is sour. It's like she's got the cup in her hand. I mean, and I've pointed this out to people many times. Like, do you think that when the prophets, when John wrote Revelation, he never read the Old Testament? I mean, as far as like the symbology, and I know it's inspired by the Lord, but it's like, yeah. But I'm just saying, but like, they talk about the things they talk about in the New Testament. Because I've had people say, well, the Old Testament's not about the things. I'm like, no, it's about, these are the precursors, and it's the same things over and over again. Because the symbology repeats, because the ancient enemies of Israel are types of the ultimate enemy. And the ancient transgressions of Israel are types of the ultimate transgression. She has a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Their drink is sour. They have committed whoredom continually. What do you think that drink tastes like? Pretty awful. I guarantee it's disgusting. It's full of abominations and filthiness. So, I feel real pleased with that, to tell you the truth. That interpretation. Thank you, Lord, for giving me understanding. It's nice because it's like he could hold it against me for not preparing. Like, literally, I looked up Gilgal a minute before I started studying. I was like, oh, I got to look up Gilgal. I said I would look that up. And I was like, no time. Because I was up till whatever. I could tell you all the things I've been doing. That's just pointless. All right. Because this is not signal my virtue hour. The wind hath, the rulers they shamefully love. And I guess I feel like almost like this, does this verse need a lot of talk? It's funny, verses that I used to in the old days love to grab onto and riff off of him. I probably should like, oh, they love to take money. Oh, because we love talking about money, though, don't we? So we maybe want to spend some time talking about money. Because it's important to talk about money. You know, it's not cool for me to sit here. I hate talking about money. I don't care about money. But if you've got some money, I have this, I'd like to sell you this Bible. And if you've got money, I'd like to sell you these cassette tapes. Or, you know, that's what it was back when I was 20 years old. So I think it seems not that long ago, but apparently that must have been ancient times because I was buying cassette tapes. I still have hundreds of cassette tapes in my storage building in a container, and cassettes. You know, and for a donation of so many dollars, you can have the cassette and you can have the teaching. And you know, and it's great. They gave them away for free, and they didn't give them away for free. The teachings were free on the TV if you were willing to be patient, which I was not, but I was willing to pay. I gladly paid. I just don't like the part about I hate talking about money and then talking about money anyways. I don't like to beg. Would you please give a donation? I mean, they ask for a donation for everything. A donation. Everything is for a donation. That's begging. And I can say I never beg because I don't ask for donations. There's a donation button on my website. But people were asking how they could donate. They want to donate. I have very few donors. I mean very few, like count them on one hand, okay? Literally. That's no, you know, at least as of this time. God knows what the future is going to bring. But this is not meant for that. You know, this is meant for something else. And so, yeah, we can talk about money. It's important to support the work of God, right? If it needs it, where it's needed. Sometimes the work of God is to support people who can't feed themselves, or people who are crippled, people who are truly, indigent. I think that's the right word. People who are truly destitute, orphans, widows. Now, in our country, there's a lot of support for people. People with, poor people with families. They get Medicaid. You got for healthcare. And then you get food stamps. And moms without husbands, they can get Section 8 housing, welfare. There's all kinds of ways people can get help in our society. And widows, there's Social Security. There's really, the people who are on the street are either drug addicts or mentally ill for the most part. Some people who are mentally healthy and not addicted to drugs who find themselves homeless are usually only briefly homeless. They find a way because they have their faculties and they're not mentally ill and they're able to recover themselves somehow. And there are certainly they should be helped. And the mentally ill should also be helped. But how would you help them is not so obvious. Because I know how to help someone who can help me help them. Like let's say somebody who, a healthy person who's fallen into a ditch. I can reach my hand down, they can reach their hand up, I can grasp them, they can grasp me, and we can work together to pull them out of the ditch. They can brace themselves against the wall, I can pull, and they can help me, and it's very easy to raise an able-bodied person out of a ditch. But what about someone who's fallen down and has broken their legs and their spine or something, and how do you move them out? They can't help you, and you might hurt them worse in your helping. And that's a great analogy for that kind of stuff, but kind of off the topic. Well, I guess you know why? Because, I feel like we do a lot for people in our country, and I'm very pleased to live in a country where starvation is nearly unheard of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nearly unheard of. I know there's always extreme cases. But what people love give ye. I'm going to take it. We know Robert Tilton. We know the dudes on the TV, on the Trinity Network are always, money, 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 and plant a seed and blah, 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 blah. And their ministry is about giving money. Give your money to the Lord. The Lord will bless you. This is what the Lord says. And he just, all they talk about is how God's going to bless you if you give him money and believe in him. And, but you can be blessed of the Lord without giving any money, especially if you don't have any. But money, so you need to give though. We should give, meaning give of ourselves. Offer your bodies a living sacrifice. This is your reasonable service. Those with means should learn to distribute. That is true. If we have means, we should distribute. Meaning, if you have money, you should give money. But like I said, a lot of your money is taken in taxes, and a lot of that is distributed to poor people. That's why you live in a society like where I said, where there's not a lot of that going on. So you're already in a system that already kind of does that and takes care of people. What I would say is give more of yourself. You know what I mean? Give of things that you can't quantify monetarily. Give your mind to the understanding of the Lord. Like I said in a study in Corinthians, I was like, I want you to give to me. I want you to give me your attention. I want you to listen. You know what I mean? I want you to pay attention. I want you to implement the things I'm saying as much as makes sense for you. You know what I mean? You're where you are. That's what I want you to give to me. I want to have your full attention. I want your full commitment to the Lord. You can do that for me, and I will consider myself compensated. Because you do owe me for this, by the way. It's like, but what I will take is sincere commitment to the Lord as payment. That's sufficient. And what you're convicted to do on God's behalf, then do it. But certainly, I don't need a bunch of gold piled up at my feet. There's no need for it, and because it is unseemly. There is something shameful about, it's like, I don't live richly, and I'm sure some people would consider, I was watching a movie with my kids, and someone used the term asshole, about to describe a home in that movie, which was nicer than mine, but is a modest, single family type home. And this is this place was built in 1866. That door behind me, I believe, was originally the master bedroom, and over there on the floor there's a square cut out where the iron stove used to, I think, sit or whatever. I mean, it's an old house with walls this thick. It's just really, that's how it is. And but I consider it, I live well. I don't need to, I would like to put a swimming pool out in the yard, and maybe I will someday through my labor, and I would like to do other things too. I could use another bathroom because of all the people I could use a shower because we only got the bathtub. But that's my responsibility. Like, I don't need to burden the Lord's people with my needs. Unless I was serving the Lord so full time that I had no way to earn money for myself. And the thing is, these guys, I know they do ministry full time, but like I said, their ministry is like, I don't know, full time what? They have a half-hour show every day? I mean, so it's like my thing, except half as long, and then what? They got to spend like an hour ahead of time probably in makeup. Right? And of course they have to have nice suits to appear on television. They got to pay all the overhead. I look forward, and I really hope the internet destroys all their ministries. I've heard people saying the rise of internet preachers. Well, I'm not the one who's rising, that's for sure. And I've seen some of the ones that are rising, and it's unfortunate. But it's like, I don't know. Like I said, there's not a lot of appetite for this sort of long form. I'm taking forever to go through. I realized that when I started off, I was going through stuff faster, but it's slower and slower. But the thing is, what's the rush in getting through the Word? People don't want to study it anyways. It's not like they want to study. I mean, if I was just up here reading the Bible, I don't think people are going to watch me any more than me explaining it. You know what I mean? It's good to have it explained to you. It's necessary. That's what teaching is, and expounded upon. So we call it expository Bible study. So, but the rulers with shame, love, give you. The reason I talked about like the in our society how we take care of people, but people, the government rulers, they just want more and more. And they will portray the American people, I'm talking about America now, but whatever, as more and more need of things. They need free college. They need this. They need that. So they want to take more. At some level, like it's like my house. It's like some things are my responsibility. You know what I mean? I don't even believe in college. Like none of my kids are going to college. Unless here's the thing. Here's the caveat. Unless there's a profession you want to enter into that requires a college education, such as doctor, veterinarian, dentist, engineer, great reason to go to college. You want to be an engineer? Go to college. Lawyer, yeah, all that. I'm not as big a fan of those professions. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of professions that if you know you want to do, you go to college for. Because you have to. Because in high school, they don't teach you everything you need to know to be a doctor. And that's manifest, right? And you can't just go out and study on your own. It's like, like I've learned a lot of things on my own, but can I get a cadaver in here? I need to practice dissecting a human. It's just not really plausible to do it on your own. Unless you start your own medical school and whatever. That's a big undertaking on its own, right? I mean, maybe you could get all that stuff. I don't know. Well, if you start your own medical school, you better already know what you're doing. All right. Getting far afield there. But I don't even believe in college. What I'm saying is they love to portray like, oh, it's needed. And in our society, the politicians play to the greed of the people. Because we, the people, are the ultimate rulers of the nation. And the people, they are covetous and greedy and want more. I need paid time off to do all this stuff. I need this. I need that. And, I'm not going to argue the virtue of any one thing. I will say free college is the dumbest thing ever. It's like, free high school isn't worth anything. Free college, all it means is college education ain't going to be worth anything. And most of those educations are just going to be political in nature, and nobody needs that. Free college for anyone who wants to be an engineer, I guess I'd be more willing to listen. Free college for doctors, free college. I mean, if you can cut it, if you qualify, I don't know. I'm just saying. I hear more, but free liberal arts education, you can become a free gender studies bachelor. You can get a bachelor in gender studies and free. I'd rather pay you not to become not to get a degree in that. I'd rather pay you to not go. I'd rather pay you to become a carpenter. How about that? Something productive. There's a lot of skilled jobs that people aren't filling. You know that? Okay, whatever. The wind hath bound her up in her wings. She's got the wind in her wings now. She's a lamb in a wide place. She's a bird caught up in the wind. I mean? And wind is also, the word wind is the same word that's used for spirit in the Hebrew. It's ruach. It means spirit or wind. And so, because the wind and the spirit, and I'm over and it's going to go a little bit over. We start late and we end late. Just the way it is. Sometimes I feel like I get close to starting on time and I think like, maybe I shouldn't do this because nobody's going to be expecting it. Whatever. If I could set the thing for 7:05, I would, but then I wonder if it wouldn't start, whatever. It is what it is. It's either this Bible study or no Bible study. So, the idea of wind and spirit, there's a correlation there because, like the wind is a metaphor for the spirit. It's invisible, but it acts on people. It acts on things. It catches the birds and moves them. And you can't see what's moving them, but you can feel it and you know it. And the Spirit is like that. It is at least somewhat like that. You don't feel it physically. But spirits are like that. In the times you live in, you can feel a spirit in that time. I can look back at other times I lived in, and there was a spirit of that time. And it's a weird thing because it's something that affects everyone and comes from no one. It comes from no individual, but it is collectively the spirit of the times. And there's a spirit, and like when we, in our life, we can arrange things to be a certain way so that we end up caught up in a flow of the spirit of that time. Not like God's spirit, but I just mean like because there's more spirits than God's spirit out there. And there is a general spirit. Like there is a spirit of the times. Like when Jesus said, you do not know what spirit you are of. You know what I mean? That wasn't of the time. Well, it is about the times too. About the time you live in, and you don't know what you're supposed to be doing. Their drink is sour. They should be see how this verse here. I like the way they're both on the screen. Their drink is sour. They shall be ashamed because of their sacrifices. That's a bracket. You're gonna be ashamed for the sour drink you've poured out to the Lord. I mean, I don't want to stand before God ashamed. Oh, Paul, that could never happen. You're a Christian. Yeah, well, there was a guy in a parable who had one talent. And I think that one talent, the parable of the pounds, parable of the talents in the New Testament, one received 5, one received 2, one received 1, whatever. The one who had 5 came back with 10. The one who had 2 came back with 4. The one who had 1 came back with 1, and he said, I was afraid. I knew you were an austere man, so I hid your talent in the earth. Here you have that which is thine. And the master was raw. The other guys, he was like, great, good job. But the last guy, he was like, you wicked and slothful servant, you knew I was austere, yet you should have at least given mine to the usurers. Then I could have had mine with usury. I could have had mine with interest. Give it to the bank. And he's wroth with him, and he casts him out, and he rejects him. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? And in your name have cast out devils. In your name have done many wonderful works. And I've had people say, like, see, they thought they could be saved on works. They should have been having faith. I think they had faith. They thought they believed in Jesus. Just what kind of faith they had. Everyone who's a Christian has some sort of faith. Obviously, not all faith is acceptable. You know what I mean? So the people who think like, oh, if you believe God exists, that's faith. Well, it's this kind of faith, but it's not the kind that's going to lead to eternal life. The demons also believe God exists, and they tremble before him, and that does them no good. You also will tremble before God. Your faith in God is not worth anything if it's just, well, I believe God exists, and I know he's a rough customer, so I try to keep my distance. So, we want to have the kind of faith that is at one time trust, and at the other time a faithfulness to him. And by believing in him and trusting in him, we commit to him in a way that it's important. It's important what we offer God. And so we learn that we might offer the right things. That our lives, when ultimately poured out, when our sacrifice, our reasonable service is offered, that it would be something acceptable and not something God would consider sour. Not something that we ought to be ashamed of. When my life is finished, I don't want to look back at it as an object of shame. There were a lot of points in my life where if I had to pour out my life at that moment and die and appear before the Lord, I'd be ashamed at the life that I'd lived. I might have made it through, yet so as by fire, as Paul says, But I still would have been embarrassed for how nakedly I passed through the fire and barely squeaked into heaven. You know what I mean? I don't like this whole high school attitude towards God. How many credits do I need to graduate? What's the minimum? I mean, when I was in high school, my goal was not to graduate, but to get into the college I wanted to get into. You know, and for that, it wasn't a question of like, though I tell you what, my last semester of high school, it was the writing was on the wall because I had a lot of empty periods because I barely needed to do anything to graduate. I had I needed hardly anything. I took more classes than I needed, but I mean, I definitely took the minimalist attitude. I didn't want to take any more than I had to. Load up on classes my final semester when I didn't have to. So, anyways, thanks for joining this study. We'll start chapter 5, which is what's next. And we'll start that tomorrow. And here we go. Been looking for this song all week.
And the post hast thou set up thy remembrance, for thou hast discovered thyself to another that